joining us from the league owners meeting that's going on right now during the season in New York City. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer. Good to see you, Albert. How are you?
I'm good. How are we doing, Rich?
Good to see you. Is that somebody going on behind you? Is it like a backstage that we
I
got
heard
going on
some
there?
maintenance maybe happening behind me here at the hotel. You guys are getting a real taste of the atmosphere here.
Very good. Sounds good. Looks like they're getting the velvet ropes, probably for the commissioner. That's the only way he knows how to roll. I get it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's,
let's just jump into it here because we were talking about Tua and Mike McDaniel's comment that he hopes Tua's not going to throw 10 picks. I guess the gallows humor is coming out in Miami right now. What can you tell us is in fact happening for the Dolphins in that organization right now, Albert?
I think that there's a lot of reflection happening inside that building now. And I just don't know where the next answer is. And, if you want, I could take you through some of the history of this, but I think it really goes back to, a couple of years ago when they were winning and they had a culture there that I think was a little permissive of the stars and, where maybe there was one set of rules for guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey and a separate set of rules for other guys. And that works when you're winning. Then a couple of years ago, a couple of those guys clashed with Vic Fangio when Fangio came in as the DC. So they wind up moving on from Fangio after 23. And then last year, you're not winning anymore. And there are more questions, I think, internally on the leadership of the team. And so this year they come in, they try and really emphasize character in building the team for 2025. And now they're sitting there at 1-6. The quarterback isn't playing well. The area of the game where, Mike McDaniel's expertise is, and I don't think he's lost his ability to build an offense or call an offense or coach a quarterback, but that obviously isn't working at a very high level right now. And, I do think there are some people in the organization who before the end of the year might like to get a look at Anthony Weaver, as an interim coach. So there's just a lot of moving parts there right now. And, I think Mike McDaniel still got some rope to kind of climb his way out of this. But, certainly, there weren't great signs and what was a really, really dark, I think, afternoon for them in Cleveland.
My goodness, was it ever? Okay, so no changes on the horizon or because the trade deadline's coming up too. Trade deadline's a couple weeks away, Albert.
Yeah,
it's right there.
And I think that's an important piece of nuance here because the hard thing about the trade deadline is, okay, so the teams that are going to be sellers are generally teams that are waving the white flag on the season. But if you are Chris Breer or you are Mike McDaniel, and your jobs might be on the line right now, are you willing to move on from players that can help you the rest of the year, maybe help you dig out of this? When the assets coming back aren't going to be things that, might be assets you won't get a chance to use because they could be 2026 draft picks. So, I think sometimes in these sorts of situations, it becomes what's best for the organization long-term versus what's best for the guys running the organization as it's currently constituted short-term. There are cases where you see owners make changes in season to kind of make sure that, the focus is on what's best for the organization from a long-term standpoint. So it's a weird position to be in. And I hate to be the one who's going to sit here and tell you like Stephen Ross does not want to fire Mike McDaniel because it does feel like things are going that way. I don't think he wants to do this in season. Then again, there's that long-term piece of it. And there's also the fact that you do have, an assistant coach on hand who you might want to get a look at before the end of the season, in the head coach's seat.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show from the league owners meeting in New York City mid-season. We'll get to that in a second, as well as some crucial Week 8 games. My goodness, things are going fast halfway through the season for some. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So let's jump into the Monday Nighter before we turn the page. What do you got from? What's your takeaway from the doubleheader results from Monday night, Albert?
Well, so like the lines, I think the takeaway is that might be the most complete team in football right now and the most complete roster in football right now. And God, were there some dumb things said after week 1, after they lost at Lambeau. I think what you're seeing right now is, we've given Dan Campbell a lot of credit, and rightfully so, for digging that organization out of the hole that it was in, back in 2021. I think maybe the person we haven't given enough credit to is the general manager, Brad Holmes, because even though they lost Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn in the offseason, that still was a team full of talented young players, and it was on display again last night with Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell and what he's meant to that team, and Aiden Hutchinson and Jack Campbell. And God, they didn't have Brian Branch, but he's one of those players too. That is a talented, balanced, young roster. Even still, they've got a quarterback who's playing at an MVP level in Jared Goff. And so I think for the third straight year, they're very firmly in the Super Bowl mix, even without those coordinators that were part of building the thing up. And then, in the late game, I think it's hard not to look first at the struggles that C.J. Stroud has had with a new offensive coordinator and how the Texans are going to dig themselves out of it. And on the flip side, I'd say Seattle, I sort of looked at Seattle coming into the year like I looked at Green Bay. They had a lot of very good young players that, some of the guys that came aboard as a result of all the capital they got in the Russell Wilson trade. So, just like Green Bay, to me, they were this team full of very good players, and it's like, can they elevate to become great players? And I think you're starting to see that with the young players really becoming such important pieces of their core on defense, guys like Byron Murphy and Eamon Warry, who they just drafted, and Devin Witherspoon. And then on the offensive side, JSN becoming one of the best receivers in all of football, Charles becoming one of the best left tackles in all of football, the two backs, Charbonnet and Walker. And then, Sam Darnold, I think, proving to all of us that last year really wasn't a fluke, that this is who he's becoming as a quarterback. And so, I look at the job Mike McDaniel and John Schneider have done, just not even just, getting those guys, building the roster back up, again, in part through all the capital they got in the Russell Wilson trade, but then developing those guys and those guys continuing to get better. And, I think certainly there's a lot of intention, rightfully so, on Jackson Smith and Jake Bendel, how he's played the last few weeks. But there are a lot of guys on that roster just like that were already really good players coming into the year that I think are on the precipice of becoming great players.
Yeah, the Seahawks at 5-2 going into a bye. The Rams coming off of a win in London that I saw with my own two eyes. They're 5-2 going into a bye. The Niners sitting there at 5-2 heading into Houston to start turning the page here a little bit to week 8. Is Brock Purdy anywhere on the horizon here for them, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is sort of a day-to-day thing at this point. And I think Mac Jones has given them some flexibility. It's incredible what they've done, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah, yeah.
To lose the guys that they've lost, to play without Brock and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Brandon Ayuk still hasn't stepped foot on the field. Kittle lost a lot of time. I think McCaffrey deserves to be in the MVP conversation based on what he's meant to them. But I think because of the way that Max played, they've got some flexibility with Brock. And I know, Brock badly wants to get out there, and he pushed it the last time, right? Like, that was a 2 or 3 week injury. He went on the 2-week side and wound up aggravating it. So they're going to be careful, but I do think he's in the day-to-day category now. Maybe it happens this week. Maybe it happens next week. We'll see. Obviously, they have yet to step foot on the practice field yet, so we should probably know more tomorrow.
And the first game of week 8 is coming up in just a couple of days right here in Los Angeles. The Chargers, after getting shown the door by the rampaging Indianapolis Colts, taking on a Vikings team that did give the Eagles all it could handle before succumbing. What's the scoop on the quarterback front for Minnesota? JJ McCarthy versus his former college coach is something that everyone was looking forward to seeing. Are we going to see that, or is it Carson Wentz still for them?
I think it's Carson Wentz on Thursday night, and then I think they reassess after the game. I think Kevin O'Connell, the one thing that's interesting about all of this is I think you go back to their approach in the offseason, and it's easy to forget this, but they did make an offer to Sam Darnold, and they did make a substantial offer close to what the Colts gave Daniel Jones to come back. The logic and all of that was not a lack of belief in JJ McCarthy. It was, we haven't seen it yet. And so, we've got this roster full of players that are ready to compete right now. We're not a rebuilding team. We can't throw a season overboard in the name of quarterback development. It was a 14-win team last year with a lot of guys that are in the middle of their careers. And so, I think that that's important context to the way this whole Carson Wentz thing is playing out, where it's like, okay, like let's see what this looks like with Carson Wentz in there. And it wasn't perfect on Sunday either. I know he threw for 300 yards, but he put the ball in peril a bunch, and so this is, I think, a little bit of a tricky situation. Now, I think the easy thing is, because this is an injury that can recur, the high ankle sprain for JJ McCarthy, this is the sort of injury that can recur. All right, like we're not going to push him on a short week, but I think you see how Carson Wentz plays on Thursday, and then you reassess after that. My hunch is that JJ McCarthy is going to be the quarterback for the rest of the year after that one, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, week 9 it would be Minnesota at Detroit. So if McCarthy can't come back for his a matchup with his former head coach in college, he'll just have to do it in the state of Michigan, which would be a tough assignment. Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. A week 8 marquee, obviously Sunday nighter with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers going at it on Sunday Night Football, and Dallas and Denver coming off of some rousing victories and taking on each other. But one that, for me, I think is rubber really meeting the road is the Ravens coming off of a bye at 1-5, taking on a Bears team that's won 4 in a row. I'll give you the floor right here. Lamar wasn't seen on Monday when the team comes out for their first practice. Roquan Smith was out there. What are you hearing about Lamar and the Ravens at 1-5, Albert?
I think Lamar's close. Now, again, they're going to be careful with him, and this is the way they've always operated with Lamar. Like, they've always been very careful, and because he plays the quarterback position in a different way than almost anybody in modern history has, with the way that they involve him in the run game. And that's something that if you talk to quarterbacks, if you wind up playing in the playoffs and you're beat up, like a runner would be beat up, it can affect your mechanics. So there's a million reasons why they're really, really careful with him. I'd say on the flip side of that, right? Like, and I'm just establishing how careful they're going to be with him. On the flip side of that, this is like now a pretty significant hole they're in. They're 1-5 now, and it's time to start digging out of that hole. And you looked at the inactive list a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was Mike Garafolo who had the stat. It was something like 20 Pro Bowl selections between the 8 guys who were on the inactive list. They need to get going, and their season, they're close to being at the point where their season is going to be on the line on a week-to-week basis. And this is a team, and I can just tell you this, Rich, going into the year, they felt like this is the most talented roster that they had in a long time, and that this was a team that had a shot to compete for a championship. So there's a massive level of disappointment in how all of this has played out. And, I think Roquan coming out and saying, like, more or less, like, I'm going to be out there on Sunday, like putting a stake in the ground, I think is setting the tone for everybody. Like, it may not be must win, but they're damn close to it right now. And so it's going to need to be all hands on deck. You balance that against being careful with Lamar. It'll be interesting to see the way the next few days play out.
And then your thoughts going, I always love getting your perspective, Albert, this Sunday nighter. Rodgers trying to get in that rarefied air of beating all 32 franchises, taking on the Green Bay Packers for what probably will be the last time, unless they see each other in the Super Bowl. You never know.
Yeah.
What are you thinking here with Micah coming off a 3-sack performance in Arizona? This is going to be so much fun on Sunday night coming up.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable because the way we've been talking about the Packers, because they've been sort of schizophrenic early in the year, right? Like, you had the sugar high of the Micah Parsons trade, and then you have the 2-0 start, and then they level off, and that inexplicable loss in Cleveland, and then the weird tie with the Cowboys, and now they're back on track. It's hard to believe they're the number 1 seed in the NFC right now. So they're sort of where we thought they would be. This is a huge game for the Packers, obviously, because every game is big when you're in that sort of position. I'm really excited to see what this looks like with Aaron Rodgers, because just talking to people in Pittsburgh and the people who are around him, over the last couple of games, if you watch Aaron play, you're starting to see the way that he's moving and the way he's making throws across his body. And when you start to see those things where it looks like he's playing loose and free, they really feel like that's indicative of his comfort level now in Arthur Smith's offense. and that already he's starting to take ownership of it, and that he can toggle between playing within the scheme and then being the playmaker that he's always been. And I don't know that he ever got to that point with the Jets. But they really feel like he's getting there for the first time since he was a Packer with the Steelers. And obviously, I think we all know, anybody who's been around Aaron, he's going to say the right things, I'm sure, this week. But we all know he's got a hair across his you-know-what, going one. And there might be some glares up into the suite level there at Acrisure Stadium after this throw or that throw that he makes. I think he still has some bones to pick with some people in the front office there. So it'll be fun to watch. And I do think, like, the interesting thing about the Steelers is not just Aaron. I think other pieces of that operation are coming along as well. Like, that young offensive line really struggled early on, but they had high hopes for that group. That group's starting to come together. DK Metcalf, I think, has been as good as you could possibly have hoped for. And now do the pieces around him start to come together? Your Jonnu Smiths, your Fryer Moose, your Roman Wilsons, your Calvin Austins, like, all that's starting to come together. So it should be strength on strength based on how the Steelers offense is starting to play and where the Packers defense is.
In the weekends right here on the ESPN app, where you're checking out Albert Breer on the Rich Eisen Show from Sports Illustrated, Kansas City and Washington in Arrowhead on Monday night. The Chiefs are playing their best football of the year. They're fully constituted, and now we're wondering about Jayden Daniels again and his health. What can you tell me about that? 6 days out right now, Albert.
Yeah, I'd certainly say, like, his health is a question. And this is something that it's such an interesting topic because it was a concern with him coming into the pros because of the amount of hits that he took in college and how he kept putting himself in harm's way in college. I don't know if you ever saw the Looney Tunes video. Did you ever see that, Rich?
No, sir.
All right. Well, there was a video of him taking just monster hits with, like, Looney Tunes sound effects in the background at LSU. But it did kind of, like, illustrate how, like, he had this way where he didn't get himself out of trouble enough. And it did display his toughness, but it was also like, he's not going to last playing this way if he plays this way in the pros. And certainly I think that's something that's a factor now, right? Like, so that's something you have to kind of pay attention to now in his second year as a pro quarterback, because he's not built like a Josh Allen or a Cam Newton. He's sort of got that angular basketball player build. So, like, that's something the Commanders are going to be careful with. We'll see where he's at from a health standpoint going into the practice week tomorrow. I wouldn't say it looks great for him, but we'll see whether or not he can make it on Monday night. And then the Chiefs, Rich,
yes, sir,
they're going like this.
They sure are.
They're going like this. I would just tell you this. All right. The people who are around Patrick Mahomes think he may be playing the best football of his career right now. And there was a play 2 weeks ago where he no-looked a pass. No one paid attention to it. He no-looked a pass to Noah Gray in the flat where he had Hollywood Brown in the slot, and he was looking at Hollywood Brown, and he no-looked. He held the entire defense looking at Hollywood Brown, and he no-looked it over to the flat to Noah Gray. It was a 6-yard pickup. But one of the guys there picked it out for me and said, like, this play right here is the difference. And he's confident in the offense. He's confident in his receivers. And most of all, he's confident in his offensive line, because he can't do that unless he's confident that the offensive line is going to hold up. And that's without Josh Simmons in the mix, right? That's what Jalen Moore at left tackle, who they paid $15 million a year for. So you see that play 2 weeks ago. They ran the exact same play, and it was even more efficient this week. And it was a play at the end of the first half where he had Xavier Worthy in the slot, eyes on Xavier Worthy in the slot, no looks the ball to the flat out to Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice chews up 12 yards, and they pick up the first down. The defense is playing good. Mahomes is at his very best. They've got Rice back, who they believe Rice is their very best skill player. That's something they've maintained for 2 years now, that's their best skill player. They just got him back. If the Chiefs stay healthy, I think this Chiefs team could be better than the one that won Super Bowls in 22 and 23. But again, like, that depends on health and some other things. But like I said, Mahomes playing at an MVP level, and the arrow is pointing straight up on the Chiefs.
That's saying a lot. Before I let you go, what is on the docket at this owners meeting?
Well, there's a lot of things here. our mutual friend Don Weir wanted me to point out that we still need to set a bet for late November.
Whatever.
So I had to make sure that's on my docket. So
Okay.
we make sure that got into the public forum.
There's a lot of time between now and then, Albert. A lot of time between now and then. But don't worry. Don't worry. The odds are in your favor. The odds are in your favor. I mean, who wins 5 in a row in this series? Oh, wait a minute. You guys once did. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. You see, scripts can flip.
I would say like one of the biggest things at this owners meeting, because the 18 games is something like we've all been kind of constantly talking about for the last year or two. I would say that's probably backburnered until the union gets its ducks in a row, because they can't go forward with that until they get approval from the union. And the union doesn't have a permanent executive director right now. So like I'd say that one's probably backburnered. I think the future of the broadcast deals is starting to become front and center for them with the opt-outs coming, and what they're going to do with all the different packages, at the end of the decade. So I think that's on the list here among things that they have to discuss. I think the rules, the officiating, that sort of thing is going to be on the list as well.
Like what? Like what? Tush push?
Well, I would say the way, I think from a global standpoint, the way they use the technology, because I don't know about you, Rich, but like I feel like it's really starting to disrupt the flow of these games. And so like, how do you use the technology? Because technology is supposed to make things more efficient. I don't think technology's made things more efficient in this front. So I think there are some big picture discussions to be had there. I think the tush push could come up. I'm not sure. And then the one thing that I'm not sure if they'll vote on it here, but the next Super Bowl that'll be available. So 60 is in Santa Clara, 61 is in Inglewood, 62 is in Atlanta, which that could be the 18-game season because the date isn't set yet on Super Bowl 62, which is kind of like one of those things that's a tell, right? No Super Bowl date set yet, but the site said that's in Atlanta. Super Bowl 63, I think they've sort of maybe not locked in, but they focused a little bit on Las Vegas as the host for that. So it's possible they discuss that or even vote on that.
I mean, twist our arms, Albert.
Yeah. Oh,
Come
man.
on.
Oh, Vegas.
That was really no, I mean, in terms of a setup, in terms of a city, in terms of what you can do outside of waiting for the Super Bowl, in terms of, shows, dinners, hotel rooms, accessibility, walking around, the airport's right down there. Fantastic. It was as good as it gets. So,
well, I'm the guy who wants it every year in New Orleans.
+4.
I'm the one who wants New Orleans every year, Rich. So
I hear you,
like,
Albert.
let's get it back to the Superdome before long. That's all I care about.
Okay, buddy. Great chatting with you. Greatly appreciated. And just pump the brakes, man. You got 60 out of the 66 first place votes. Ohio State is clearly the best team in college football. A lot of time between now and that game against Michigan. All right, let's just slow your roll. Just take it 1 week at a time, Albert, okay?
We got a defensive coordinator who might have some scores to settle up there. So,
okay.
Let's look at the end of November.
Oh, Patricia? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. All right, with his pencil and everything against Michigan. All right, that's interesting. Albert, take care of yourself. Thanks for the time, buddy.
All right, thanks for having me, Rich.
Everybody check out Albert on socials and, of course, the MMQB on Sports Illustrated. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.